Hello guys, welcome to the channel Codeboard once again, and this is Kaushik. So in our last tutorial video we already developed an web based real time HTML editor. That is when you were writing some HTML, CSS and JavaScript code in that editor, the result was showing in a separate section on real time basis. But I thought that we could add two very important and practical features with that particular editor. So one is like that if some user wants to save his work at some point of time and want to continue from that point of time later on, so there should be some kind of facility that so that he can do it easily. And another one is that if after writing some codes in HTML, CSS and JavaScript, if users want to export that code in a separate file, he should do it easily. So this fourth tutorial is all about adding those two practical features with that editor. So let's start with the coding. Okay, so we left our coding at this point in our last video, so we'll continue from this point onward. So I already mentioned that we are going to add two more important features with this particular editor. So let's start with the exporting feature. So I thought that the exporting will be done when the user will press the Ctrl S button. So why did I choose the Ctrl S? Because whenever we are writing some code in our any editor, then the Ctrl S will by default save the file to your hard disk. Okay, so that is why I thought, okay, so let's override the by default Ctrl S functionality in for our application, and we'll write our own code so that the file will be exported when user will press Ctrl S during editing his code. Okay. So for that let us add first event listener with the window. So that will be something like this. Okay, so this means that whenever the key down event will be done in our application, this function will be invoked. So but we need to detect the key down event only for the Ctrl and S together. So for that let's write some code. If event dot control key or event dot meta key and e dot key equal to small s, and sorry, it should be or e dot key equals to capital S. Okay, so what does that mean? That we are first detecting whether the control key has been pressed. So this will return true if the control key has been pressed. Now you could ask me that what is about this meta key. So this meta key is for the Mac operating system, because in Mac operating system you cannot detect the control key press using this code. And along with this control key press, we also have to detect if the S key has been pressed. So that is why I have written this code also. So I had to check the small s and capital S both, because the user could turn his cap locks on. Okay, so now if I go to the browser, let me show you something. If I press Ctrl S button, by default the browser will try to save the whole HTML in this page, but we don't need that, right? Because we only need that the HTML, CSS and JavaScript code, whatever is written in this editor, that needs to be saved only. So for that let me go to this coding section and just press e dot prevent default. So what that means? It means that the default behavior of Ctrl and S key press will be overridden and this will not be occurred anymore. The code we are going to write, that is going to be executed. So for that let's start our coding. So we are going to ask the user to enter the file name by which name he wants to export the file. Okay, now to export the file, what we need to do, that we have already our content here, so we need to write this content in a file and needs to be downloaded. Okay, so but this content variable is a local variable inside this function, so let me add it as a global variable here and declaring it as blank initially. Okay, so now all I have to do is that I need to create an anchor tag dynamically. So for that, let's add coding like this: document dot create element anchor tag, and now I have to add the href attribute for this anchor tag. It should be like, you know, data colon application slash octet stream, and then I need to put comma, and all I have to do is that I need to call a function here, encode URI component, and inside this there has to be HTML start tag, and has to be the content here, and finally, sorry, it should be here the HTML end tag, because if we want to, you know, export our HTML coding, then the HTML content should be inside HTML start and end tag, right? Okay, so that's it. And now all I have to do is that I need to add the download attribute, a dot download equals to file name. So it will help to export the file with the file name provided by the user. And finally, we need to add the click programmatically on this anchor tag. So that's it. But all I want to add is that adding some line breaking element here, so that whenever user will read this particular code, maybe in a file, it will be easily readable, because by default when we are writing some code, naturally we start writing our code from the next line of a starting tag, and also we close our tag in the next line wherever we have ended the coding for that particular tag. Okay, so let's check it should work now. Let's go to the browser and refresh it. Let me add some HTML coding here. Div class equals to test my test and div end. Okay, now I am adding some CSS code here for test class. So now let's add that color is red. Okay, so that's it. Let me press Ctrl S. Okay, so it's not working because, you know, so what I had to do is that we need to add prevent default here. Okay, so let me add it, and let me go to the browser again. So okay, and let me add the CSS class here. Okay, and if I now paste the Ctrl S, it is asking for the file name. So let's add the file name as export test.html. okay, so the file has been saved. Now if you open this file, you can see that the content has been exported here, and you can see the output exactly same whatever we are seeing here. Okay, so that's it. The exporting feature, it's quite simple, just like, you know, maybe a 5 or 10 line codes, and you can add the export feature. Okay, let's proceed with the saving the work feature. Okay, so for that, all I have to do is that I need to add a header section div to put some, you know, buttons and some more elements, so that the user can save his work and load his work from that point. So let's add a div here with the class header section. Okay, and all I need to do is that I need to add 2 more div inside here. One is left header section and another is right header section. Okay, in the left header section, I want to add 2 element. One is like, first thing I want to add is enter project name, and the input element here, input type equals to text, and ID should be project name. Okay, and let's add some space here, and finally add a button to save the project. Button on click save project and save button. Okay, and in the right section div I want to add a drop down. Select id equals to projects and select it. So that's it. That's all about the adding the HTML structure. Now let's add some styling for this structure. So let's start with the header section, adding this with 98.2%, position fixed, height 7%, border 1px solid black. Okay, and as we have already added the height as 7%, we need to decrease the height here. So let's add it to 98%, and also we have it should be 89%. Okay, and all we have to add is the top is going to be maybe 8%. Now I am going to add the style for the left header section and right header section. So let's add style for the left header section. It should be float left, padding 3 pixel, and for right header section, right header section, it should be float right and padding 3 pixel once again. Okay, so let me go to the browser and refresh it. So you can see that our structure is ready. There is enter project name, so the user will enter some project name, and if he clicks the save button, it will going to be saved. And in this drop down, the saved projects will be appeared, and from if the user select from this drop down any of this project, that code will be loaded in this HTML, CSS and JavaScript editor. That is the purpose. Okay, so let's go to the code now and define this save project function. Okay, so function save project. So we are going to write our logic inside this particular method, but before writing any code inside this method, let me explain you about a concept called web storage. Okay, so basically there are two kind of web storage are there. One is a local storage and another is a session storage. So let me write an example for you and explain you in that way. Okay, so as you can see that I have already developed an HTML page. There are basically 4 buttons to save the values in local storage and also in the session storage. So in the local storage save function, you can see that I have fetching the data from the input text and then putting it in an array. And another second element I am also pushing to show it that how I can save multiple array element. Okay, so similarly I am doing into the session storage case. And for the retrieving value, I am showing the alert retrieving the values from the local storage and session storage. Okay, so let me go to the browser now. So in the browser, I have refreshed and let me add some value in the local storage. So as you can see that the value has been stored inside the local storage. In the console you can see now. So let me change the value and save into the session storage. So you can see that the 2 value has been saved into the session storage value. Okay, so if I now just click onto the get value, so you can see that the stringified value of that particular object is coming here, and for the session storage it's also same. So we cannot store any object, rather we have to say some stringified value for the object in a session storage or local storage value. Okay, so in a new tab I have opened it, and now if I just go to the application tab to check whether we have the local storage or session storage value, so we can see that there is no value for the session storage, but we have some value in the local storage. So you can see that the local storage value is coming, but in the session storage value is showing as null in the coding. Okay, so that's it. Okay, So we are going to use local storage here because we want that user could start his work from the saving point onwards. So he could close his browser, maybe shut down his machine, and he could return after maybe few days also, but still he could retrieve his work, right? So if that is our purpose, so session storage is not good for us. So local storage we are going to use in our codes. Okay, so let's start coding. So let's first pick the value of the project name from here. So var project name equals to document dot get element by id and project name dot value, right? Okay, so if project name dot trim equals to blank, or project name equals to null, then just show an alert project name cannot be blank, right, and return. So if user doesn't put any project name, so I need to show an alert and just want to return from this point, and I want the program flow should not go further from this point onward. Okay, so now let's take the HTML, CSS and JavaScript content from the editor so that we can save it into the local storage. So for CSS content equals to this, and similarly we can do it for the JS and HTML also. Okay, so we need to change these two. Okay, so that's it. Now all I want is that I need to save this content in local storage. For that we are going to use the key as project name and value as the object which contains these particular three contents. Okay, so let's do it in this way. var object equals to a blank object and obj.css equals to css content. Similarly for JS content it should be JS, and for HTML content it should be HTML, right? So all our object is ready, but we cannot store an object in a local storage. We need to make a string of that object, so we need to stringify it. For that all we have to do is like local storage dot set item project name JSON dot stringify the object, right? So that's it. Our content has been stored inside the local storage. So let me show an alert to the user that the project has been saved successfully. Okay, alert project is saved successfully. Okay, so that's it. Now all I want is that we need to retrieve the content from that local storage. So when do we want that? So when the page is being loaded, right? So when the page will be loaded, then the program will check in the local storage that if any content or any project has been saved in the local storage, and if it is there, then the name of the project should be populated inside this select, right? So let me go to the window.onload equals to function, and initially let me var. Okay, so let me loop over the local storage. So for that, for var I equals to 0, I less than local storage dot length I plus plus, and then I need to create some HTML content so that we can put the HTML content inside this drop down. Okay, so for that let me define an HTML variable var HTML equals to option close, and after that inside this loop HTML plus equals to option local storage key, that should be a dot key I Okay, so that's it. In this way we are going to get each key of inside the local storage. Okay, so what are the key of the local storage? So the key of the local storage are the project names here. So basically we always want to show the project name inside this drop down. That is why I am keeping that key value inside the option tags. So now all I want to do is that the created dynamic HTML string should be set as a inner HTML inside the drop down. Okay, so document dot get element by id dot inner HTML equals to HTML. So that should be all. Let me check into the browser. So let me refresh it. Let me add some HTML content here. Class test hello, just a simple text here, and all I want to add is some style and maybe like font size 50 pixel. Okay, so that's it. Now let me add test project. Okay, let me save it. So I can see that the project has been saved successfully. Alert is being shown here. Okay, so now let me refresh the page. Now you can see that there is a blank. Now the list has been appeared. So if I now select the test project, nothing is happening because we have not added any code that if some project has been selected, the content should be loaded. So let's go to the coding again. Inside this drop down, let's make attach an event with it, that is on change, which means that when the value is going to be changed, this function will be invoked. So populate editor. Okay, so all I want to do is that I need to define this function, right? So let me define this function here, function populate editor. So let's take the value first from this drop down. Project name equals to, document dot get element by id projects dot value, right? So the value is the value will be the project name because after changing that particular select value, this method is going to be invoked. And now let me fetch the HTML, CSS and JS content for this particular project name. Okay, so var data equals to local storage dot get item project name. Okay, so that's it. Now that what is data? Data is basically the stringified value of the object we stored here, right? So if I want to make it as a JSON object, so all I have to do is var obj equals to json dot parse data. Now I have a JavaScript object, so now we need to just put the value of CSS, HTML and JS taking from this object to the the editor, right? So let me do it now. So just copy this thing from here and paste it over here, equals to, for CSS it will be obj.css, right? Because when we stored it as a obj.css. So this is going to be same for the rest of the two things, for JS and HTML, right? So this is going to be the JS and this is going to be the HTML. Okay, so that should be everything. So let me go to the browser and check if it is working. So I have refreshed the page and let me select this test project. So as you can see that it has been already working properly. Okay, so let me add a button here to test if it is working properly with the JavaScript also. So let me add a line break here and then button on click equals to I see clicked maybe, or test button. Okay, so just define this function inside the JavaScript editor. button clicked. Okay, so that's it. Now let me check if it okay, so it is working. Now let me save it. Test project with JS. So if I just save it now, the project is saved successfully, message has been shown. So let me just refresh it and maybe copy the URL from here and paste it over here. So I have already closed the tab and I am opening it in a new tab, but I am seeing that there are two projects now saved. So let me select the JS one. So if I need to do something like some key up event has been happened, so the preview is shown here. If I now click again, you are seeing that the button click alert has been appeared. Okay, so now let me just press the Ctrl S here once again. So it is asking for the file name. So test project.html, and let me open it in a browser, and you can see that it has been exported exactly. And if I just click it here again, I am getting that particular alert. So that's it. We have already successfully completed, the saving project and exporting project feature. So that's it. See you in next video. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe my channel. Thank you.